Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee Cannibal, Part 1. It was a dark night in July 1991 when two Milwaukee police officers were approached by a man with a pair of handcuffs dangling from his wrist. Little did they know, this encounter would unveil the heinous crimes of Jeffrey Dahmer, a man who had been dubbed the Devil by fearful whispers in the community. As we explore the twisted mind of Dahmer and the gruesome details of his crimes, you won't want to miss the shocking twist that will leave you stunned. So stay tuned until the end to find out. The man had escaped from a small one-bedroom apartment on North 25th Street. When the officers went to investigate, they found themselves in a living nightmare. The discovery of body parts in a small left responding officer in shock. The scene was so horrifying that one officer even let out a scream before realizing that he was reacting to the gruesome sight before him. Jeffrey Dahmer is infamous for his heinous crimes, having killed 17 young men and boys in 13 years between 1978 and 1991. His lack of repulsion towards dead or mutilated bodies made killing just another aspect of his life. However, it was his behavior after killing his victims, including necrophilia and cannibalism, that truly shocked the world and cemented his name in the history as one of the world's most evil killers. The legacy of Jeffrey Dahmer serves as a reminder of the devastating impact of senseless violence. Annie E. Shorts was the first journalist on the scene of the crime. At first glance, the small one-bedroom apartment appeared quite ordinary, with some dishes in the sink and no obvious signs of violence. However, as detectives and officers delved deeper into the investigation, they uncovered the true horror that lay within. The antiseptic appearance of the apartment belied the devastating reality of what had occurred there, serving as a chilling reminder that evil can lurk even in the most unassuming places. The unsettling story of notorious killer Jeffrey Dahmer began decades before his eventual arrest. Born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1960, his childhood was marked by his parents' tumultuous relationship and his mother's erratic behavior. Dahmer himself was largely ignored by his parents and struggled to make connections with his peers. He displayed a lack of empathy towards others, often laughing at their misfortune. These early experiences provide a chilling glimpse into the troubled mind of a killer who would go on to commit unimaginable atrocities. Jeffrey Dahmer's fascination with death started with an innocent insect, but soon progressed to dissecting fish and killing and mutilating stray dogs. One of his young friends stumbled upon a dead dog nailed to a tree in the woods behind Dahmer's house. This dark obsession with animal anatomy eventually became tangled with sexuality, foreshadowing the horrors he would later inflict on his human victims. Dahmer's struggle to fit in continued during his high school years, leading him to turn to alcohol at a young age. Former classmates recalled him coming to school with a cup of Scotch whiskey, which was concerning behavior for a teenager. However, in the 1970s, such issues were not taken seriously and no one thought to intervene. The divorce of his parents in the summer of 1978 was a difficult time for Dahmer, as they consistently fought and forced him to take sides. This conflict led him to retreat into his own world, preoccupied with his interests and fantasies. Such experiences are not uncommon for children in such situations. At age 18, Jeffrey Dahmer was left alone in his dark thoughts and twisted desires. His family is gone, leaving him isolated and vulnerable. It was during this time that he began to act on his disturbing fantasies, leading to a string of horrific crimes that would shock the world. Discover the chilling story of how Jeffrey Dahmer's fear of abandonment drove him to commit his first murder, and how he went to become one of the most notorious serial killers in history. On June the 18th, 1978, Jeffrey Dahmer picked up a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks and brought him back to his parents' house for drinking and sex. When Hicks wanted to leave, Dahmer, driven by his fear of abandonment, clubbed him on the head with a barbell and strangled him. This was the first time Dahmer had taken the life of another human, and he went on to dispose of the body by removing the flesh, dissolving it in acid and pulverizing the bones. This brutal murder marked a significant milestone for Dahmer, who had gone from harming animals to taking human lives. He became accustomed to killing and continued to do so until he was caught. The location where he disposed Hicks's body held a special significance for him, as it was the same place where he had mutilated animals and displayed them on their tree. The heinous crimes of Jeffrey Dahmer finally came to light in 1991 when a potential victim escaped from his Milwaukee apartment after being drugged. The Milwaukee District Attorney Mike McCann prosecuted the case, describing Dahmer's actions as pure evil for taking innocent lives to satisfy his depraved desires. The world was shocked when details for Dahmer's chilling 38-page confession were leaked to a reporter from the New York Times. The leak compromised the integrity of a building worker and captured the attention of people worldwide, making Dahmer's case a matter of intense interest. Dahmer's confession revealed the disturbing life of a serial killer. After killing Stephen Hicks and mutilating his corpse in 1978, Dahmer took a hiatus from murder for 9 years. He dropped out of college after one semester and turned to heavy drinking, which continued when he joined the army and was stationed in Germany. Alcohol became a destructive crutch for Dahmer, as he would spend entire days drinking gin alone in his room. In 1981, Dahmer was discharged from the army due to his alcoholism, and he found himself homeless on the beaches of Florida. His father intervened and sent him to live with his grandmother in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, hoping for a fresh start. However, it was there that Dahmer began his horrific killing spree. Dahmer's struggles with alcoholism continued, and by 1986, he had been arrested multiple times for incident exposure, including in front of children. As a homosexual man in a stigmatized social identity at the time, it was a source of shame for him. However, it also provided him with an opportunity to prey on vulnerable individuals in the underground gay scene. This exposure seemed to reignite his dark sexual desires, leading to his next round of murders. Dahmer's goal was to drug his victims and keep them with him as companions, allowing him to control without distance. He frequented bars on Milwaukee's near south side and engaged in conversations with potential victims. This ultimately led to a reign of terror and gruesome murders that shook the nation. Dahmer had a method of choosing his victims. He would engage them in conversation and ask them about their families. If they were estranged from their families, they were more likely to become victims because he believed they wouldn't be missed. Between September 1987 and March 1988, Dahmer killed 3 men, including a 14-year-old boy who paid to pose for nude photographs before drugging. He then dissolved the bodies in acid to get rid of the evidence. This method was very effective in destroying tissue and chemicals, making it difficult to identify them as human remains. Dahmer was a very intelligent and cunning killer who was always able to cover up his tracks and avoid detection. Jeffrey Dahmer lived with his grandmother during his killing spree, and tragically 2 of his victims were murdered in her house. His grandmother had no clue about the heinous acts and crimes that her grandson was committing, but she did notice that he was bringing young men to her home, presumably for sexual encounters. However, she noticed a foul smell coming from the house. It's heart-wrenching to think about just how close she was to the horrifying reality of what was happening right underneath her roof. On September the 25th, 1988, Dahmer moved into his own apartment on North 25th Street in Milwaukee. Little did anyone know that at the time, one unspeakable horrors would occur in the apartment for the next few years. Stay tuned for the next video to learn about how the evil Dahmer turned out to be and shocking crimes he committed in that apartment.